time to get this party started or continued. Welcome to the Capture the Flag Theater. Can you guys hear me okay? No? Better? Thank you. Ooh. I feel like I'm back in a bar last night and singing. No, I won't. Anyway, welcome to the Capture the Flag Theater. Pleased you guys have stopped by and going to spend a little time with us. Hopefully you guys are familiar with the Capture the Flag process. It's about solving problems, challenges, in a gamified kind of way. Well, today we're not necessarily going to go down the gamified aspect, but we are going to talk about solving some challenges with process and things like that across your organization, and I hope it hits home. My name is Doug Haynes.
Hey everybody, is my voice good? Oh, okay, it's working. It's kind of heavy, but...
And Marcelo Ishida here.
Yeah, hi everybody.
Have you ever had one of those days where you're working on a project? Things are not going well. A project that has to be done tonight, and you've got hardware stacked on hardware. You've got cables everywhere. Power strip plugged into power strip to plug into power strip. And the project is not going exactly how you had it planned. I think we've all been there once or twice. And the only thing on your face and in your head is a sense of total frustration. Things are not going the way you wished, and help is nowhere in sight. Today we're going to walk through a process. A proven framework on how to kind of work through these issues, break down silos, and solve some of those challenges across your organization, aligning to business priorities and executive needs across breaking down some silos and those kinds of things. Again, a little bit more on myself and Marcelo. I'm a systems engineering manager based out of Colorado. A few years of experience. I do cover global accounts headquartered out of EMEA. Love to play golf, poorly, and a big fan of Southwest barbecue. Marcelo, you want to?
Yeah, let me go this side here. So, nice, good to see you all here. Hope you're enjoying the event. My name is Marcelo Ishida. I'm Brazilian. Couldn't be different. I love Brazilian barbecue. And I'm being with Cisco for 14 years, more or less now. With kind of a background on the post-sales and now on the sales side of the house. Okay, so good to see you all. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. So,
sorry. Mostly Texas, heavy smoke. I'm a big Traeger guy. I hope I didn't just get any politics here. We've got others, but it's all good food and I'm willing to try it all. So good stuff. So our agenda is really fairly straightforward. I'm going to set up a scenario and we're going to let Marcelo walk us through how to solve the challenges there. Strategic planning challenges. We've all had those. We've all had our good days and our bad days. And as I've already kind of set up, somebody's having a bad day at this company and things are not going the way we wish they were. And so we're going to walk through a process here to see what we can do to solve that. And in many cases, it's really about technology, people, and process. And if the process is in place, if the process is not in place, I don't care how good the people are or the technology, things are probably going to go bad and not get to the outcomes we wish. Are things aligned to our business priorities and processes? Are we able to work across our organization? So let's talk about a company here I'd like to highlight. Fictitious. I'd like to repeat, fictitious Acme Corp. Acme Corp had some great initiatives about 1.5 2 years ago. They put together a strategic plan. They aligned it to their business needs. They got people working in one direction, but over time, the plan hasn't really been updated. An executive has moved from one role to the other, so sponsorship is gone. Silos have come up, and things are just not going the way they wish they were. Well, what can we do to help solve these kinds of problems? Well, if you remember this morning in Oliver's presentation towards the end, he said his number one priority is how do we at Cisco deliver the best possible solutions and services to our customers with the greatest level of success possible? Well, let's walk through that. It all starts with the foundation. Understanding the current situation. We talked about Acme there, and I gave a little scenario of a kind of bad situation. But to really move forward, we got to stop, find that foundation, and start to build from there. And so the first step in our process is to build this foundation, is to sit down with an exec and understand the current business priorities and challenges and get it firsthand. To sit down and talk about the goods and the bads and their perspective on where things are today. We also want to sit down and talk with that executive a little bit about technology and where they are, and understand with those business priorities and or initiatives, are there areas where technology could have an impact on those drivers? And from that meeting, we hope to walk away with a couple of things. One, an executive who's going to sponsor us and understands the value of this process we're talking about, and they want to invest the time to deliver some really awesome outcomes. The other thing we want to do is to delve just a little bit further and maybe meet with some of the other people across the organization. Remember, I mentioned silos we're creeping in. Well, we'd like to meet with this group and that group and kind of validate these business drivers and initiatives and these levels of technology, and to understand that. So we can sit down and kind of take these technology domains that we discovered working with the exec and break it down into a little bit more detail on those technologies to begin to understand where they are, what they have, and some of the direction. Remember, this is just foundation. I'm not talking about the process yet or the steps to that. I'm just kind of setting a scenario, right? So Acme Corp, we meet with an exec, we get some sponsorship, we have an understanding across the organization with 3 or 4 additional others about where they are. So now let's dig in a little bit more onto, how we can help them move forward and understand where they are today, maybe as is, where they need to get to be, but very much aligned with those business priorities or initiatives in the right way. So Marcelo, maybe you can walk us through how we can solve these challenges.
Yes, absolutely. So until now, guys, just a quick recap. What we did was we did a meeting with the exec from the customer, and from that we extract from them what are their business priorities, right? For the next, let's say, 3-4 upcoming years, right? And then the question is, how can we help them translate these business priorities into some accomplishment through technology, right? And then here comes this second slide, which kind of put together, okay, those are the technology domains. If we get to translate their priorities on what are the technologies that could help them achieve that business priorities. So that is how we came into this slide. And of course, each of those technology domains are high level. So if we break that up a little bit down into something we can really go deep into discussions, that's what we did so far, okay? So far so good. Now let me dive into the framework itself, okay? So first thing, what we do is we explain to them, okay, we define it according to your business priorities, what are the technologies, right, that you should be working on or investing time to discuss on how those technologies can help me achieve my business priorities, right? So the question now comes from this guy is, okay, now show me how. What is the process, okay? The process is all in this slide, one slide, and this is gonna guide you through the whole framework. So first thing, remember, we discussed it with them, right, to get into this point from the technology domains and subdomains, right, which I just framed. And then we break up the framework in 2 phases, 1 and 2. The phase 1, we are going to pretty much focus on what we call as is, per Doug said, right? So basically, let's take a look at what if I take a screenshot now, today, what looks like your domains in terms of technology, right? The as is. And the phase 2 is going to be, okay, now that we know the as is, how can I move from where we are, from where we should be? Why? Because if you don't move to that to be, what's going to happen along the time is they are going to probably not going to get into their business priorities, right? So how it is done is, for example, let me deep dive into phase one first. So first thing what we do is, okay, now that we know the domains and subdomains, we set up what we call a kickoff. It varies between 1 and 3 days. It's pretty much flexible. What drives that basically is, okay, how many domains we have to discuss, how much time it's going to take, right? So then what we do is, okay, we go on site. And why is on site? Because it's extremely important to get face to face and to start working face to face first to build the connections, right? Because at this point, what we get is, okay, we know the technology domain, so we formed a new team from people from the Acme Corp that takes care of each of those domains, as well as from our side, the Cisco specialists, right, that also takes care of those technology domains. So we group in each of the categories or subcategories these new teams, and what we do is, okay, during this on-site, we put, let's say, I'm going to use one of those as example. Let's say we want to discuss with the group about LAN and wireless, okay? So what we do is we put this team in a room, right? And we use design thinking techniques. I don't know, who of you have heard about design thinking before? Anybody? Okay, so I see it's kind of common. Basically, I'm going to talk a little bit on the next slides about the deep dive, but what it is it helps on some logistics on how we get teams to collaborate. Basically, that's what design thinks about, okay? And then we get those teams to work collaboratively in a room during these 3 days, right? And what we extract from this team is, okay, what is this team opinion on the as-is for LAN and wireless, for example, right? This is task number 1. Task number 2 is, okay, how about what this team thinks about the future on the next 2-3 years investment in terms of the same technology, LAN and wireless, as an example, but now looking forward the 2B state, the future. Why is that? Again, because if you don't get the 2B discussion, they are not going to move toward their business priorities. Because remember, it's all tied back to the business priorities from the executive. Okay. So then what we do is we give those teams on week 2 to week 4, 3 weeks to work and go back to their normal business life, right? To work remotely and build the documentation on everything that was discussed face to face on that first week. Okay. Then on week 5, what we do is we organize like a remote call with everybody again to get together, and we bring those teams and we say, hey, we are going to give you 10 to 15 minutes to present what we documented so far in regards to the as-is, right? And then once you do this, everybody is going to have the same picture on every domain and subdomain on where we are, which is really good. This initiative also helps on that, which is aligning different LOBs or line of business, right? Who never had here kind of a discussion between different line of business where you need to create a whole unique strategy for everybody moving forward to the same targets, right? So this is what the initiative also helps a lot. And then after that, we are going to give the same teams, okay, now let's move to the 2B. Remember, on the kickoff, I mentioned we spend a little time discussing within those teams on how they should move forward for the 2B, right? And then what we do is, okay, now it's time to go back and move the plan from what we did for the as-is, and we create a plan in terms of architecture. What needs to be changed? Are there new technologies that need to be acquired, right? Any kind of fine-tuning on configurations, or even worse, like kind of re-architecture everything, right? So that's the point where we give those teams more 6 weeks to develop how we go from the as-is to 2B on all those topics: investments, ROIs, technology change, designs, anything you can imagine. Okay, and then at the end, on week 12, what we do is, and then we call out to go on site again. Why? Because face to face is way more effective, right? And as a closing of delivering the final document of this initiative or the framework, the 2B, right? We regroup again with all those teams, and everybody's going to be giving also some time to present how they move from the as-is to 2B, and a bunch of documentation in between, right? Last but not least, there is one thing missing, right? Anybody has any idea on what could be after we deliver this? What's that, sorry? Execution, yeah, that's a very good one. Yeah, perfect. And you got the point, because exactly that. We're still discussing a plan. Nothing really happened so far, right, in terms of executing. But it's not only execution. You know what it is governance. Because you can invest all this time with a lot of teams, right? But if you don't have a governance checking in from time to time, recurrent, right, to make it really happen, maybe you invest a lot of time and nothing's going to really change or happen, right? That's our reality. Who doesn't know that, right? That is a reality in our companies. We get so into our daily tasks that immediately everything we did and everything loved, and is everybody aligned on the strategies and why, right? But if it's not done, it means nothing, right? Okay, so before I start, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to deep dive into some documentation that we developed, the techniques that we use to make all this thing happen, okay? Well, let me stop for a moment. Any questions so far? All good? Okay. So, have a question? Sorry?
Alignment with teams alignment with project
Yep.
delivery team and the teams.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, the question was, how about the alignment, right, between the teams, in between this movement? Yeah, it's a really important question, because that's all about that. It's about aligning what we want to achieve and how long it's going to take and how we are going to execute. Who is going to take the ownership for what, right? So it's part of the process. I'm going to go through some slides and it's going to get more clear, because so far I just pitched it like very high level, how long it takes, how we actually execute. But now let me ask you for five minutes maybe. I'm going to show that. Okay? But thanks for the question. That's really important. Okay, so first things first, as I mentioned before, design thinking, right, is all about collaboration. So what you see here, some of the previous Cisco Live events, we used to have like a booth dedicated to design thinking, right? Not anymore, but it's been very nice in terms of technique for team alignment, as you asked, right? And moving forward. But what really makes sense in terms of design thinking, it's a lot of things wrote here, but I'm not going to read it all. The point for me, if you ask me, okay, how can you summarize design thinking? What I would say to you is one simple thing. You give voice to every people, and they don't feel like, okay, my boss is in the room, so I'm not going to tell him what I'm really thinking, right? So it's kind of a neutral place for everybody to be heard, right? So that's the idea of design thinking. And when we form those teams that I mentioned before, that we go into the discussions on the kickoff, as I mentioned, and further, what happens is, okay, one of the things we say is, first thing is we need to go on site kickoff to start building the connections between these people, right? But what we start on that day is, okay, everybody that in this room, let's talk about LAN and wireless. Let's make an example. Let's say you guys here, we formed, part of you are from Acme, part of you are from Cisco, right? But forget about the badges and names, okay, the companies. Let's say we are a new team formed to discuss LAN and wireless. That's the best example I can give you. And if I say that, it means we are forgetting our daily jobs descriptions, right, and badges and things. So it means that when you go into the dynamics of design thinking on the discussions, which I'm going to cover in next slides, what happens is everybody feels safe to express his own opinion, and that's extremely important. And also, of course, start building the relationship face to face, right? Okay, then we go into the dynamics or the details of what kind of techniques you use. Okay, so just take advantage of the same topic, LAN and wireless. Remember, it's only one subdomain of the whole thing that we mapped before, right? It's under this domain, transform infrastructure. So this is one example on how the logistic works. So let me guide you through that. You see the numbers from 1 to 5, right? If I were to categorize from 1 being like exploratory level on the LAN and wireless to 5 being state of the art, what I mean with that is where you guys are. Remember the as is and to be. So if I were to explain this, is what we did is we set with this Acme new group that we created, right? That we are going to discuss LAN and wireless, and then we establish some kind of categories based on the new customer needs. For example, if you look down here, you're going to see one of the topics, the very bottom here, is about knowledge. Knowledge on learning wireless to maybe, kind of keep the infrastructure working. So that's one topic very key for them. Second topic is about looking after a consolidated architecture to grow, to scale. So we speak about network fabric here, right? Third thing important for them is about life cycle management. How often we refresh the hardware and software involved on that infrastructure, right? And fourth is about operations, how we maintain everything working. Then you can ask me, okay, why you are speaking about those 4 topics only? Because for that Acme Corp, going back to their business priorities in regards to LAN and wireless, that are the 4 top of mind for the executive. That's the way we try to map the category and the maturity level from 1 to 5. You can read by yourself, but what happens in the end is, as we go up, it's going to go and evolve more and more until the best of breed or state of the art in that technology. Then your question is, why are you explaining that to me, right? How can we put this into the contest, right? It's really simple. What we do is we print those pages, and then remember, during the kickoff date, we allocate like 1 hour and a half from this big group, which all represents now LAN wireless, right? People involved somehow on that. And we print those pages, we put on the walls in a meeting room, for example. We invite everybody to be there. And then what we do is we run 2 exercises. Exercise number 1, we ask, okay, you see those black dots on the tables, for example, right? I invite everybody to run a 10 minutes exercise together as a team, right? Just grab one black dot, which is spread all over, and grab your post-its. And then first exercise is, I want you guys to stand up. Not now, I'm just simulating, okay? But anyway, then go to the walls where those papers are printed and pasted in the walls, right? And then think about LAN and wireless. In your point of view, where do you guys think you are? The black dot is called the as-is. So I'm going to give you guys 15 minutes, 10 minutes to go on the walls and just put the dot where you think you are, according to the classification we did together, right? And then, please, also make some comments. Why you think is number 3? Why you think is number 2? So on and so forth, right? So the point is, at the end of this little exercise, we're going to collect a lot of different points of view. And that's the beauty of it, right? There is no right or wrong. There are different points of view. And look, I'm not asking people to put their names. So it's anonymous. Of course, you're going to see who is going to put there. But the point is, remember the design thinking techniques to be more neutral, right? So that's the point. And then we collect a lot of things, right, about the as-is. What we do is, okay, as you see here, this is a real example, okay? You see, in average, I would say this example, we would rate them as number 3. So this company in LAN wireless is number 3. According to, it's not me saying, it's you guys saying. You guys are parts of Acme Corp, parts of our specialists. It's a new group, right? And then what we do is, next, we do the same exercise, but now we ask them to get the stars. And the star is the 2B. So think about that. The question is, I'll give you 10, 15 minutes. Stand up, get the star, and think about next 3, 4 years. Where you guys think you should be with LAN wireless? I'll give you an example. We can get a guy that put here, for example, okay, LAN wireless number 3 as is, because maybe sometimes I come to work and the wireless connection is not that good. From his point of view, it doesn't matter, right? And then what I think it should be in 3 to 5 years is I should just arrive, connect, seamless, and start working. I don't want to be bothered by any kind of technical issues or anything. I don't want to call anybody. I just want to sit and work, right? So this is one example. Of course, everyone has a different opinion, and that's the beauty of it, right? Why is that? Because we can collect the point of view not only from the infrastructure people that takes care of the infrastructure, but also from the end user, for example. Because you may know, right? The end user, sometimes the infrastructure says, okay, everything is working fine, right? Nothing wrong. But then you go ask to the end user, he says totally different opinion, which is okay. I don't think so. He says it's okay, but it's not. I start working every day, I always have problem, right? No, so it's kind of common. So at the end, what we get is as a documented final slide summarizing everything. Here's what we get. So we can see from each of the domains and subdomains, continue on LAN wireless, a view on where we are and where we want to be. And what is the beauty of this initiative or the framework? It's not a vendor that's coming tomorrow that don't know anybody about your infrastructure saying that you should do X, Y, or Z because you need to evolve from X, Y, or Z. Then the question is, do these guys really know your infrastructure? The answer is no, right? Who knows the infrastructure? You know, right? You and your team. So that's the point here. So then what start happening is, how can we plan? Remember the week 5 to week 6, right? How can we plan to move from where we are to where we should be, according to everybody's opinion and everybody else aligned, right? So here's how the work start with a kind of documentation support, right? One of the things we did was, for example, another documentation for the as-is, right? Some of the things we heard from those different teams on that kickoff date on discussing the as-is, right, was all about, you see some kind of common stuff. So, okay, what are some of the pain points on the infrastructure, right? They put things like, okay, we need to evolve the infrastructure as a service. We need to, it's too complex, our infrastructure, those kind of things, right? I'm pretty sure if you look at that, you're going to identify yourselves in a couple of sentences, right? And those are the points the teams formed should focus on evolving from the as-is to be. They should focus on solving each one of those pain points, right? Because that's the only way the executive is going to achieve his business priorities, the very first slide. But you see, normally what happens and what we see is in the companies is the executive looks like they know exactly where they want to go and what they should invest on. But the point is, how can you pass the message to all your employees, right? In terms of execution, in terms of planning, alignment, as you said, right? So this is how this initiative helps. So another point, another documentation provided, as I mentioned before, right? Another as-is documentation. This is more technical. You look in the left side, what we call findings, which kind of translates to the pain points I just mentioned in kind of summary words, right? And here we put like, okay, kind of a topology that they have and what are the problems or the situations they need to address with this initiative on the 2B, but it's still talking about the as-is, what's delivered on the as-is as documentation. And if you start talking about the 2B, remember all those pain points, right? So what we did is, those groups, they worked for the 6 weeks that I mentioned in the high-level framework, and they built this. This is the final delivery of the 2B, how to move from the as-is to 2B. And then, okay, you look at that, okay, how can I translate that? The way to read this is from the center to the top. So what we see, year 1, what should you do? You should first look at the very basic infrastructure stuffs, in this case. So how people get access to the network, how can you scale your network in terms of software-defined architecture, how can you provide a better consuming model in terms of as a service, right? Once you establish the basics, you start working on the very specifics on year 2 and year 3. I'm not going to read it all, but you can see all these domains, they are kind of addressed one by one. Additionally, what we have here is, you see this slide is kind of a high-level executive slide on a plan on the year 1, 2, and 3, the same as we saw before. In the top, you see, okay, what are some of the big projects that they should invest when it comes back to infrastructure, okay? And then, if they decide to invest every year, immediately they're supposed to get business benefits toward their business priorities. So this slide is really good because if you remember on the left side, those are the executive business priorities, right? So how we actually translated with this initiative, the framework, the discussions, the teams, right? And how we translated that into technology investment. In the end of the day, is how the technology investment is helping them to achieve what they want, right? Of course, I'm just giving you an example of one subdomain because of time, but we are going to get the same for every domain that I discussed it before. Another thing, remember this slide from the as is, right? Now is the to be. So where we call findings on the as is, now you see as goals, okay? So meaning that with all those investments, this is like a more technical slide, right? From the same initiative. So what we are saying here is, okay, we are gonna, with all those investments year over year, you're gonna address each one of your pain points that were initially listed on the findings. And again, you're gonna have one for each domain, okay? Then, here's the time to execute, okay? Then comes back to your question, which is, okay, everything looks fine, beautiful, nice slides, nice summary, nice documentation. I have fulfilled the needs of my executive. I had fulfilled the needs of my technical teams, my technical guys, right? Everybody's happy. Everybody's knows where we are going, right? Everybody is able now to tell the same story, right? But now, how can we execute? And here is this slide. The way you read it is from left to right, year 1, 2, and 3, on dark blue at the top. And look at the red, governance. So what we do is, remember on week 12, the last one, we delivered all of this documentation and also this kind of a live chart. Why it's a live chart? Because we delivered this to the governance team that we asked the executive to build. There are some companies that already have governance inside, right? But if not, they can build one. And what is the key role for this team is to keep this alive, to schedule like recurrent calls every 3 months, 6 months, whatever they need or whatever makes sense for the executive and the teams, right? And make this run. And why it's supposed to be a live document? Because, okay, this is the way it started. You see a lot of names and initiatives. And one of the good things I should call out is this legend here. You see, it makes the investments way more predictable, right? In terms of across the time. One of the things the executive always, ask people is about, okay, how can I know, or he goes to your IT managers underneath and asks, okay, I need to build the new budget plan for next 2 years, right? And what happens is they normally work only in that specific time and then they forget. And then in the next year, it comes back again, right? So the question is this really a good way to move forward? And the answer is, I don't think so. I think if we had like a structured plan with everybody on the same page, everybody knowing where we are going, and this is flexible, right? This is supposed to be a live document. We can pretty much revisit the same document and just change the orders, if that makes sense, okay, in terms of investment as well. Okay, guys, so I went through a lot, I know. Because of time, I had to go quickly. But I mean, I'm gonna hand it over to Doug again to go to a quick recap. But hopefully, you guys were able to understand a little bit, or what was the proposal with this. We call it the strategic engagement, okay? And that's a way we as Cisco are trying to do different from all, you guys only seeing us as kind of a equipment vendor, right? This is a completely different approach. I don't know if you noticed, but I did not mention any kind of product name because it means to be a different approach. It's more like listen to the customer, seeing the pain points, and try to help together to build some plan. Instead of going like, okay, I have this product X, Y, or Z, it's going to help you with that. It's all amazing, right? So with that, Doug, please take it over.
I'm going to back up one slide just for one quick second here. One thing to note, whoops. Come on. Here on the timeline. One of the things, as I've discussed this with other customers, is well, this is a 3-year plan. I'm a smaller company. I just need a 1-year plan. I need a 18-month plan, that's fine. This is a very flexible structure. Remember, we sat down and discussed with the executive their business drivers. We align technology to those drivers, and based on the number of domains that we have, plan could be 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. It is totally up to what makes sense for you. And this is about aligned to you, not dictated or told to you. And that's a big change. We sat down with the executive. We understood the drivers. We understood the technology. We ensured that we worked across silos. Those teams that Marcelo referred to, those are across different silos. That's IT, that's security, that's operations. We understood the technology. We documented it. We built a plan. We delivered that plan, and kind of, as I highlighted, it doesn't have to be 3 years. It can be 1 year or 18 months, whatever makes sense, aligned to your priorities and the key technologies there. And one other thing I'm going to go back to the timeline slide from Marcelo. Some of those technologies may just be reworks of things you're already doing, or maybe you're already implementing wireless. Maybe there's just a tweak. This isn't about you got to go redo everything and buy a whole new truckload of stuff. Your Cisco rep might love you for that, but that's not the reality. It's about how do we help you optimize and align to those business drivers or initiatives in your company based on your feedback. This is about your team and things like that. We've just helped kind of move it along. Again, deliveries, real outcomes, and aligned to you. Focus here for us is about solving some of those business challenges, making sure, as Oliver and I've already called out once, as he liked to call it out, is our number one priority is delivering solutions and services that have the best possible impact on you in the right possible ways. Validated, aligned. We did our homework. It was aligned to the feedback you gave us. You were part of that whole planning process, timeline. And again, a plan that's flexible. It's an iterative process. It will evolve. We hope that you come back to this and that we would help you again and again as we move forward in time, because we find the value in that. So with that, I will say thank you for your time today. If you have questions, please let us know. We'll be right around here to help you with that. Is there a survey?
Yeah, I think when he scanned you guys, it's gonna pop up on your Cisco Live application to fill out the survey. So if you can just spend some minutes, that would be great for us. Thank you very much. Yeah.
The one other reminder is these presentations and this video will be posted. So if you need any bits and pieces, remember that will be out there and available to you. And again, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.